Welcome on in, folks. Another edition of Over and Back, your one-stop shop for all you need to bet the PLL this weekend. They played at altitude last weekend in Colorado. Goals were piling up like crazy. They're going to be playing a little altitude this weekend in Salt Lake City. And I mean, we don't even need air to breathe. We just need bets to place right here because I got my guy coming on. Couldn't be more excited as we share some initials. And I'm hoping we're thinking the same here. We got Dan Arestia. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan Arestia. Covers lacrosse for Lacrosse Flash, New England Lacrosse Journal. You can find him everywhere, but you need to be following him on Twitter. You can also get his full slate of picks each and every week on Pickswise. Dan, thank you for taking the time, man. Great to have you on, brother. How you doing?
What an intro. Thanks for having me, man. I'm doing well. Happy to be on. Happy to talk some PLL. It's been a great season so far. Like you said, last week we had a ton of goals. We're all, up a bunch of units. We're feeling good. It's been a good PLL year.
Well, and Dan, before we get into the game specifically, we're going to kick it off as we always do with the quick stick segment, run down two games before we do a little total talk, and then end it with our angle of the week with some best bets, some free plays all along the way. I just wanted to ask you because, you've been around lacrosse and been covering lacrosse, since I've been following it. So I just wanted to ask you how you kind of felt this kind of emergence of betting and how it's been for you as a fan, as a reporter, and now as a betting analyst too, looking at lacrosse through that lens, because you probably have noticed it's a little bit different than just picking games when you're factoring in the spread, you're factoring in this props. What's it been like looking at more from a betting angle this year for you?
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. I love that PLL was able to get the betting thing happening. I'm happy they did it as quickly as they did. One of the things I think that's great about it is, number one, it's going to attract new fans. There's plenty of people out there who will, if they see the action, they will be interested in the game. Like if the game is on in a bar, they'll be interested, maybe throwing a bet on it, makes them follow it. Maybe it makes them follow it next week. It's an interesting element there with the way it draws new fans in a demographic that isn't necessarily always the PLL's go-to demo. A lot of the times the demo for them is a younger audience than maybe the typical gambling or gambling savvy audience. So there's that piece. And then, it elevates the league in a way because you can't do gambling if you don't have your shit together. Like you can't have people betting on games if you don't have the right information reaching the right people, if people can't make an educated bet, if they don't know, if your injury reports aren't together, if your player movement if you don't know what's going on, if nobody can follow that kind of stuff and your league isn't buttoned up in a professional way, then gambling can't happen. So by having gambling, it's a flag that says like, this is legit. This is like a Big Four league. This is something you can take seriously. It's a good bet to make. If you're a savvy gambler, check out lacrosse. And there's like we said, there's money to be made here because a lot of people are still kind of learning the sport a little bit. Sometimes there's some softer lines than you might see in like an NFL weekend. So there's a lot of excitement about and coming from where I came from as a reporter before, it wasn't ever really something I considered. Like we did pick'ems every week, but on your own, you kind of look at, a huge tip of the cap to our guy, Las Vegas Lines on Twitter, who's been doing it since lacrosse
for years
was actually a thing. You could like go to your bartender bookie and be like, Las Vegas said I could bet this. Were you good for it? But we've come a long way from our good friend Las Vegas Lions. God bless him, still does it. We all still love him. But now we're out. It's gone from that to seeing it on DraftKings, on BetMGM, on Barstool, on everywhere. So the meteoric rise of it from a Twitter account to several of the biggest books out there taking your action on lacrosse has been really, really fun to watch.
No, I couldn't have said it any better myself, Dan. I'm right there with you, and I think the great part is the thing you said at the top is bringing in new fans into the fold, because lacrosse fans are going to be, ready for any lacrosse product that's out there. Bringing sports fans in and that bridge with sports betting to kind of put those two together, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. And the funny thing is yes, while the league has gotten their shit together, the odds makers hope that we don't have our shit together when we're betting on these games. That's why people are checking out your articles on Pickswise, why they're listening here on Over and Back, because we'll do the research for you. So let's get into it, my guy. Start off with our quick stick segment here, and we'll start with one of these Saturday games, just because this one interested me right off of the top, and it's Archers laying the goal and a half, 1.5 point favorites against Chaos, total in this one 24.5. Because the thing is if you just scroll through Lacrosse Twitter, you're going to see at least one tweet that's alluding towards Archers being frauds. However, I got Lacrosse Playground who reached out to me. They said, Evan Malloy, the first episode that he was on was dropping that line that, Archers are frauds. They beat the Cannons twice. They beat Redwoods and they beat Chaos before they got their guys back from the NLL Cup. So I hate to say it, like, is the hot take of Archers are frauds warranted, or do you look at it from a little bit different of an angle?
I don't know. It's tough to call them frauds. I think, I think the criticism that you can level at them is you can call them an underachiever, I think. I think you look at their roster, any roster where your offensive personnel has Connor Fields as like the 5th best guy means your offense is insane. It's packed. Like it's you have so much talent. It's out of control. So, even with some deficiencies they've had in other spots, they've been looking for a face-off guy. They hope Inacio is the answer. I think Inacio can be the answer. I'm sure, you had Beast on talking about it, but the change and getting used to PLL face-offs is significant. It's the position, I think, where it's most significant to make the leap from college to pro. But I think, Inacio can be their guy, but I think you need to start asking the question of why haven't the Archers, given their personnel on offense, given their personnel on defense, they've had excellent goaltending. Gittleman was out of his mind last year. Hossack's a depoy. You got Scott Ratliff, you got Matt McMahon. These guys are not nobodies. These are very, very good players, and the offense is what it is. It's fair to wonder, like, how come you can't get over just not winning some faceoffs? How come you can't make it to a championship game?
Yep.
So I think it's a legit thing to wonder. And then, Chaos is on their usual kind of deal here of start slow and charge late, but the late charge is coming mighty late this year. I think you see them every week, and I think they're going to put up the highlights for you. And I mean, Josh Byrne is appointment television. If your matchup gets switched with Josh Byrne, you saw it last week, like the second JT Giles Harris left, and he was like, give me the ball, I'm scoring a goal. And it was Josh Byrne's going to score a goal here. You could see it before the Dodge started. Like, here comes Josh Byrne, he's going to score a goal. So, I think the Chaos are getting things together a little bit now too. I think, Dane Smith has emerged as this like assist machine. Yeah. Josh Byrne has always been a goal scoring machine. I think when the other pieces kind of fit a little bit and they get some more of the production from some other guys too, I think they'll be okay. I think, they still have Blaze. I think their defense is okay. I think it's something to watch in this game, as we talked just a second ago about Archers and their face-off woes a little bit. They'll have Inacio this weekend. They did not have him last time. So we don't really have historical data there. And the Chaos, I don't know what Max Adler is going to be able to do. He's been banged up. He came back from the indoor season with an injury that took some time to come back. And he's been playing. You can see it. He's still carrying that injury. Like, he's still not 100% out there. So if they go with TK, then you get a matchup with TK. TK's been really good. But, you'll see kind of how that goes. I think it'll be interesting. I have Jared Connors as a bit of an equalizer there. I think he'll be the best of the wing players in that game. So, I kind of like the Archers here. It's scary to take -1.5 in any game in the PLL.
Any game. It's like coin flips every week, Dan. It's like, whew.
I think the 1.5 underdogs, I think it was Hutton Jackson said something like 1.5 underdogs. I think it was coming into last week, were like 18-10 against the spread or something. Like they just cover all the time. So, it's scary to do it, but I think I still like the Archers minus the 1.5. In this one.
Well, and I think you were talking about just how Chaos has that late charge. We're still waiting on it. I think the fact that at this point, with all that we've seen from Cannons, the fact that they're still alive in the playoff race tells you how much that late kind of surge is coming. So 1.5 for you potentially on Archer. Seems like it's more of a lean. Anything on the total or any player props that you're eyeing in this game? Because I think it's a pretty tough game to bet.
Yeah, it is a tough game to bet. The over, I think I would stay away from. I think I think Gettleman will be back in net this weekend for the Archers. I don't think they're going to go with Dobson again. Dobson played fine, but I think that was just a chance to get him some game action and kind of see what you have a little bit there. Give Gettleman a rest, and now it's Gettleman's. It's definitely Gettleman's job. And he's been pretty good against the two, and I think that's going to be something that the Chaos, it's still, I think, part of their identity to try and get Mac and get guys like that, see if they can release a poll for some two opportunities a couple times in the game. I don't know if they're going to get that many here. But I kind of like Grant Ament to hit his. He's got a nice over at 3.5 points, and I think he's like, it's plus money. I think it's plus 130 for Ament to go over 3.5 points. So I like that as a prop. I think the Chaos close defenders, guys like Newman and Rowlett, their best matchups are with guys. You see it all the time when Newman guards Rambo, right? Newman wants to play. He wants you to put your shoulder into his chest. He wants to play that physical, just kind of who's going to gain some leverage, who's going to outbody the other guy kind of defense. Rowlett wants to do that, I think, a little bit too. He wants to rough you up. He wants to be physical. Eamon is tough to do that with because his game is the whole idea is to not let you do that. He's quick. He's elusive. He wants to separate just a little bit and get his hands free. And, I think through his first 3 games, he almost had double-digit assist opportunities, which is an insane rate. I think he's feeling a little more himself after coming back from that injury. I think when you come back from a hamstring injury like the one he had, even if you're 100%, I think it takes some time to trust it and to really cut loose with it. So I think that's okay. And then, like I said, I think the face-off battle won't be quite as lopsided against the Archers this week. I think if Inacio goes, I think that'll be a little more even, and you'll have some more opportunities, some more possessions for the Archers, which is more opportunities for Eamon. So I think he gets his touches, and I think he can do it this week.
Whole lot of info here right at the top in our quick stick segment. I love it. And as you were talking there, Dan, I crunched the numbers from last year because it is Hutton who's been tracking, these different numbers from this year. You go back to last year, underdogs against the spread, 49 and 25. So yeah, you need some Tums when you're laying any goal and a half in this league because man, I think that just speaks to the parity. We see it with our eyes, but when you see it quantified like that, it really backs up with what we kind of feel about this league, that it's anybody's game any week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why you never see the 2.5 line anymore. You'll never see it's 1.5 one way or the other for somebody every week. If there's ever 2.5 line, I'm not even looking at the teams involved. I'm just taking the 2.5.
And it's a perfect segue because we got Chrome laying 2.5 against Cannons in our second game in quick sticks. Total in this one, 24.5. But Dan said it there. The story ain't the total. The story ain't the teams playing. The story's that Chrome are 2.5 point favorites despite, just snapping out of that skid. So I don't know, man. That's a head scratcher in a game that I know must win gets insanely overused, but like the Cannons can't afford to lose this, especially if Chaos win their game. I don't know, that 2.5, that's a head scratcher, Dan.
Yeah, I'm taking the Cannons plus 2.5. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, please. The Cannons have yet to be favored in a game this year. They've been an underdog every single week. They've now covered 4 times. So they cover pretty frequently. They have the one outright win as a dog in week 1 over the Waterdogs. Yep. But they're in all these games, and of course it's might be because they have Lyle Thompson, who's Lyle Thompson. Yeah. I'm kind of pulling for the A-Rod in the 2005 scenario of MVP on the last place team. But I think the Cannons, it's must win in the sense that if they, the playoffs are officially started for the Cannons. If they lose, it's over. They need to win out, and they need a little bit of help to get in, but they can still get in. But yeah, a loss is the end. So this is a playoff game. It's must win every single game for the rest of the time this year. So, they cover pretty frequently. I kind of like them to cover again this week. Like you said, Chrome has kind of been in that funk. They had that losing skid that they were able to snap out of, but the fun one this week will be JT Giles Harris and Lyle, because JT has been shutting down everybody. He's been a monster. Yeah. If he's on you, your production's getting limited. So there's that element to it. But I think you started to see it when Cannons played Archers a couple weeks ago, and you've seen a little more now, where some defenses are saying, okay, Lyle's going to do damage. Like, make peace with that. Let's limit the other damage. Let's see what else these guys can do. So if anybody else out here can beat us, if Lyle, is, because he's a miracle worker, can play 1v6 sometimes and still have 7 points, like, you tip your hat and you say, I'm amazed to have been on the field with you. But the Archers use Graham Hossack on Asher Knowlton. They're like, okay, Asher, let's see if you can do something against the depoy. Let's see if you can, how you handle this matchup. Let's see how you handle everything else in the field. And it's delivered wins, even though it's delivered like tremendous production for Lyle, who would, again, he would get it anyway. But if the Chrome don't have to do that, because they'll just use JT anyway. And all right, let's see what else you can do. Manley's going to guard probably Knowlton, and then we'll see how else you feel against that Chrome defensive midfield that's really good. Yeah. So
you still have Terafenko floating around and can cover any one of your players too.
You'll have Bernhardt releasing. You have Salama, who's having a spectacular year.
Yeah.
So I still, even with all that said, a 2.5 point spread in the PLL, when you see it, I feel like you're just supposed to take it. So I kind of like the Cannons in this one to cover. And I will also say that the Cannons have hit the over in their games. They hit it last week, right? Yeah, they hit it last week. So they've hit the over 6 times in 8 games. So when the Cannons play, you're getting goals, you're getting points, man. Like it's going to happen. So I will take the Cannons to cover, and I will take the over in this one.
Oh, a little 2-pack from Dan. And I'm with you, man. Like, I saw the 2.5 and I fired on it right away, because also the lines can tell you a little bit of a story too. Not only are Chrome laying 2.5, it's also plus money on the take back if you lay the 2.5 with Chrome. So that almost feels like the odds makers are, it's a little extra juicy. They can win by margin. Cannons look bad. It's also worth mentioning, Dan, this is the first time that the Chrome are laying 2.5 since you've been able to bet the PLL. So we've seen them as 1.5 point favorites this season, never as 2.5, even as 1.5 point favorites. They're just 2-2 against the spread. Going back to last season, blindly betting underdogs plus 2.5, 8-4 against the spread. So I don't know. That thing's fishy to me. I'm with you, Dan. We're going 2.5 with Cannons. And I might even do a little money line sprinkle. I don't know yet, but I may do a little money line sprinkle. You were talking about the total there. Let's get into our total talk segment and talk this Waterdogs Redwoods game. Waterdogs 1.5 point favorites. Total in this one 24.5. We have two totals that are 23.5. 2 of them 24.5. This is one of those 24.5. So I don't know. Typically, historically, it's been Redwoods defense, Redwoods defense. The story of, their little rise here at the end of the year has really been their offense. So I don't know, Dan, we expecting goals again in this one when the Waterdogs and Redwoods are facing off? What are you thinking?
I am. And again, historically, like the Redwoods, 8 games, 5 overs hit. The Waterdogs, 8 games, 5 overs hit. These teams score goals, man. I like the Woods. I think, I like where they're at right now. In particular, I kind of like where Miles Jones is at. I know Miles did not have a super productive game last week. In fact, I think he went 0 for 10 shooting, but he hasn't committed the turnover in the last 4 games. And he's putting points up. Like he's being careful with the ball. He's making smart plays. Like he's finding the time to go and the time to not go. He had a great second assist on their man up with a nice hum pass down low to Pannell, who made a 1 more for a goal. He's still like, he's looking now more like Miles from 2021. And Miles 2021 was like, for me, I thought he should have been in the MVP conversation, should have been a finalist for it. He had the most productive midfield year of the year. He had as many points as like Grant Ament did last year. He's a spectacular player last year. Yeah. So he's looking more like that guy now. I think the Woods are getting it together here at the right time. I think, they need to make sure they get healthy. I think you need Jules back in the mix for them. He's just too good of a shooter to be not on the field. Like we said, Miles went 0 for 10 last week. I think Sergio Perkovic went like 0 for 6 or 0 for 7. Kavanaugh is having the worst shooting year of his career. Yeah. You need to have somebody out there who's going to hit the net and score consistently, and that's exactly what Jules is. So if he can go this week, and I'm hoping he can, then I think the Redwoods become attractive. I also like in this one, I think the Waterdogs, it's tough to find the spot where they're bad, right? Like where, if you're going to pick if you're going to pick the place to attack the Waterdogs, where are you going to do it? Like
there's nothing glaring for sure.
the beginning of the year, you were like, well, they won't, they might not have Withers if he's facing off in the indoor season or whatever, but they did, and then he got hurt, so he missed time anyway. But Copeland managed to find, I think, the perfect guy to step in for Withers when Withers is out. Wiz isn't going to go out there and win a ton of clamps and like pop it clean to himself.
But he's going to make it dirty.
But he's going to make sure that if you pick up the ball, you go through Ryland Reese and Zach Curry and do it. You're not just beating Withers; you're beating all three of those guys for the
Great point.
And Tucci is the same way. Like Tucci is not out there winning a ton of clamps, but he is a sick athlete, and he is going to hustle like crazy, and he's going to make sure that it's not decided until Reese and Courier have a say in how the faceoff goes. So, I think you need to, if you're the Redwoods, you need to think about how you're going to handle that. Is TD going to have a vintage TD game where he's able to have a ton of clean exits and try and get out before the mayhem arrives? Or, is this going to be a game where he needs guys like Sexton to really bail him out? I think Sexton as a wing player does so much for that Redwoods team. So I think the Waterdogs in this one, there's a lot of opportunity to score plenty of goals here.
Yeah.
So, I think, again, the 24.5 total, like I said at the top, Redwoods have hit it 5 times. Waterdogs have hit it 5 times. When they play, they score a ton of goals.
Yep.
Waterdogs, true to the Barstool and the Big Cat demands, I think still lead the league in shots. I don't think anyone's shooting any more than the Waterdogs. So I will take the over on the 24.5 in this one.
Yeah, last time these teams faced off was a 1916 game. So, yeah, just shoot more, try and hit the net more, and it usually works out. Well, it has worked out for Waterdogs, just 4 straight weeks. They've won. However, those have been 1-goal games. So I wonder, Dan, is that sustainable? I mean, Redwoods, now you're getting the 1.5 potentially with them. They're 4-1 as underdogs going back to last year. So typically they aren't in this underdog role because they have respect to the odds makers. I don't know. How about the side? There anything there for you? Or are you going to attack this just going by the total, maybe some player props?
I think with the Woods, yeah, the wins have been by a goal, but they're also over they have a win over the Atlas, right? Or am I thinking of the Waterdogs, right?
Yep.
They have wins over the Whips, the Atlas, the Chrome.
Those are not like they're just beating up on Cannons or Chaos.
They had a Cannons win in there too. But they're those 4 wins. They're by a goal, but they're over the top 3 teams in the league in those wins. So, I think they make these games interesting. The Waterdogs do for sure. Those fourth quarters, you're going to come away with some agita, with a little bit of heartburn by the time they're over. If you're a Waterdogs fan, they had to go to OT after whatever it was. They gave up a 6-goal fourth quarter lead, I think, to Cannons. I was on Waterdogs minus 1.5 in that one. I was throwing things at the television. That was a tough beat, but and then this past week again, they made it interesting, man. It took OT, but they had that 3-goal lead late, and then poof. So they'll make it interesting. But I like the Woods I like the Woods in this one, and I like the over too.
So last thing I have for you in this game before we get to our angle of the week, talk a little Whips and Atlas. I was running down these player props that just got dropped before we were recording, and there was one that just piqued my interest, and I think we might be looking the same. However, it worries me. I think we might be looking at a bait job by the odds makers because we're getting plus 145 to go over on a Rob Pannell 2.5 assists, and this guy is red hot. I don't know. I'll let you have the floor because I think it worries me how much I love this prop, man.
Yeah, I saw it too, and I do weekly for Pickswise. I do player props. I pick.
That's like your thing you've been doing all year. Yeah,
it's kind of become my thing. I started hot with it, and they just let me keep doing it. And this one, the last couple of weeks there, I haven't seen one where I was like, this one's great. I'm just gonna hammer this and then see what I can figure out with the other 2. This week I was like, I will take that Pannell 2.5 assist.
It was like the clouds parted.
Yeah, I was
the Hallelujah chorus played.
It's been tougher to find the ones where you really feel good about them, but this one I liked. Rob has 3 assists in each of the last 2 games.
Yep.
We talked about the matchup already a little bit, the Waterdogs, but half of the goals surrendered by the Waterdogs this year have been assisted goals. Ooh. The assisted rate against the Waterdogs is very, very high.
That's a good stat.
Rob hasn't had a game with one or less assists since June, and he might be getting Jules back, like one of the best shooters in the league. So I like Rob to go over 2.5 assists in this one. I saw that and I was like, this feels like stars aligning. I feel like I should be all over this one. So yeah, I think we're aligned on that. It's just the first thing you think of is, all right, who's Rob's individual matchup? Who's going to guard him? Is it going to be Gobrecht? Is it going to be Randall? And how does that kind of impact the way he plays? And then you think about where the Waterdogs are going to be dangerous off the ball, and who's Rob going to be able to find. And I still think it's going to be Jules, but I like the opportunity again for Miles and Sergio to maybe get right with a couple assisted twos in this game, or at least get some opportunities that way. So I think I like the idea a lot of the way Miles has been playing lately, of him dodging hard, whether it's an alley dodge or through the middle or whatever, a roll away from help and a move it through X to Rob Pannell, who's attacking an unsettled defense with his head up. Like, I'll take that to score 3 assists any day of the week. So yeah, I'm really feeling good about Rob going over 2.5 assists.
Man, if you're not following Dan for the player picks, follow him for the knowledge of the game, man. That was a mic drop moment. And I'm with you, man. I think we make it a DA double best bet here on Rob Pannell going over the 2.5 assists. You already laid out the fact that he's rolling, and it really seems like this team has thrived since he's kind of really embraced that facilitator role, not feeling like he has to be so ball dominant. And we saw last week that it doesn't matter if these Redwoods players have 3 dudes laying on top of them. They can still find a way to drop it into the net. So I also just went back and looked, matchup wise, because we didn't get a chance to see these two teams face off yet. And again, past results, no indicator of future success, but he's played the Waterdogs twice in his career, 3 assists both games. So I'm just saying there's a chance right there, Dan. So
yeah, stars are aligned for this one.
All right, let's align them and lock it on in. Plus 145. I don't know if it'll be the same come game time. I think some other people might be hopping on as well with the over and back crew. So, Dan, let's get into it, man. Angle of the week time. Whipsnakes, 1.5 point favorites, despite the fact that they just play 1-goal games and win them all. Cardiac kids, whatever you want to call them. Yeah. They just find some way to stick the knife in you at the end of the game. Total in this one, 23.5. But the Whips win, but they don't cover, Dan. So I don't know. 1.5 against an Atlas team, potentially in a bounce back spot. How are you breaking down this game? Because I can't wait to watch it. I just don't know what the hell to bet on.
Yeah, I would take the 1.5 in this one. I don't know if I'll actually be picking or betting this one, but the Whips play 1-goal games and they win. So it's just what they do. They've been doing it for years. So like the Atlas plus the 1.5 is a good one. I think, the face-off battle here is always fun. Nardella and Baptiste have good battles because they are both now, it used to be Nardella was really the peak guy when it came to, he can stay on and do damage. He can hurt you offensively. You have to be careful with him, the way he subs out, whether or not he stays on, what he's going to do. But Trevor's game has elevated in that regard, particularly this year. I feel like he's really taken this leap. You saw it early in the year with, he had that goal where he caught it, I think, over his shoulder backhand.
Yes.
Put a fake on and scored like a diving goal. Yeah. And I saw
that Baptiste?
I saw that and I was like, parents, get your kids playing box lacrosse too. Like you learn to do that when you take enough face-offs indoors. So his hands and that it's the kind of thing that comes with playing in tight spaces indoors. But I think that's really, really helped him this year. And it's if you really want to get nuts, I'm not doing it, but you can get an over 0.5 point for Baptiste on DraftKings this week. If you want to really take like some big plus money, it's there for you. If you can think he's going to score, I think you can bet him to go over 1.5 points. And that would be nuts if he did it. But, I think that speaks to the level at which his game has arisen this year. He's become not just a 70% face-off guy. He's become a threat on the offensive end more than he has been in the past. So, I think he can be an equalizer in this one. Another fun one here, and it feels like bait, but you can get Jeff Teat to go over 2.5 goals at plus 140. And Jeff Teat historically against the Whipsnakes is not good. Like he has great
so
games
he's due.
against everybody else
against
the Whips except the Whipsnakes. But like, you just see that those numbers next to each other. If Jeff Teat gets a hat trick, that's all he has to do, and I get plus 140
money.
It seems like, again, I don't know if that feels like bait, but that's one where I didn't get a chance to look too deep into a lot of these props today, but that's one I'm going to take a really close look at. Even though historically that it's not there, like the amount of money that you can get on that is intriguing to me, to make me want to really take a look.
Yeah, anytime that I'm able to find any of those plus money plays, if a handicap makes sense for it, it's worth it. And that's why, you practice that good bankroll management and you really stay judicial with the props that you're placing. So then when you have one like this that's kind of a coin toss, you have a little bit extra of that bankroll that you can maybe sprinkle there. So I might just join you with that one. As far as the game, though, goes, man, like we said, this Whipsnakes team, They win, but they don't cover. You're getting the goal and a half. You already said you're leaning that way. I just have some numbers to kind of put it in a little bit more of a frame, because Whipsnakes, we all talk about it, but you see 2.5, or excuse me, 2 and 5 against the spread as favorites this season. And it's nothing new. Like, that's what they did last year. Just like Dan said, 3 and 10 as 1.5 point favorites going back to last year. And with this Atlas team, they've really turned a corner since they've completely revamped this roster heading into this season. This is only the second time that we're seeing them as dogs this year, and they covered in the other instance. So trends are kind of telling you Atlas is the way to go. It's just so hard to bet against this Whipsnakes team. So I don't know if I can do it. I know that I should do it. Any other way that you're betting this game? Any total stand out to you? I know you hit a lot on those player props, but is there any other actionable stuff that you're going to be throwing in there, or is this just kind of throw in some of your player props, maybe sprinkle on the dog and just enjoy this game?
This is one that I think I will just sit back and enjoy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I would say, I think you mentioned Atlas, I think have been an underdog once, and you mentioned they covered that one time. They won that game outright. So this is the second time they've been an underdog. Can they win outright again? Can they beat the Whipsnakes? If it's close late, you just got to be like, do I just turn this off? Like, it's got to be a one goal.
I know. I've seen the ending to this story.
I've seen this movie, man. But I think, if like you said, if you've been judicious, you have a little extra something to throw out there. I think this could be a fun one to throw a little Atlas money line.
Agreed. And you get even money at it. Maybe shop around, find a little bit better of a price. I know our neighbors up north in Canada, if you're betting on Cool Bet, they can get plus 140 on Atlas. So, always be shopping around with that one. Last thing that I have, you kind of touched upon this, and then I'll give you the opportunity to throw in anything else we maybe didn't hit on, but you talked about Baptiste and the season that he's had. I mean, there has just been major support for him vocally with people on social media and market support. I mean, Baptiste is now plus 150 to win MVP. I mean, that's basically saying the award is his to lose. This is a huge test, though, this week. So if he is able to get the upper hand on Nardella this week, continue that high percentage, maybe throw in that point here, a point there. Do you think this is his award to lose, or are there some other names that maybe people are forgetting about under the surface?
I think it's probably Trevor's to lose at this point, even with him missing some time with injury.
Yeah.
I think he's been that good. We talked about him a little bit already, but you look at the Beast MVP season from 2015, I think it was, and Trevor's doing that and then some. Like he's been that good. If this season from a faceoff specialist won an MVP already. So I think it can be Trevor's to lose. I think some other guys that could be in the mix. I mentioned Lyle. I think being on what looks like it could be the last place team is going to obviously hurt his chances. Again, I'm personally like pulling for the A-Rod in 05. I'm pulling for the MVP on the last place team, but I think he's been that good. It's scary, it's tough because it's like, well, how much is he really doing for them if they're a one-win team? But I mean, like, I feel like without him, I don't even know if the Cannons are all that watchable. Like, what are you, how are they even in these games without Love?
Yeah.
So, I think he's there. And then I think Will Manny was in the mix for a while. He spent some time at the top of the point standings. He's been really good. He's put together a couple bad weeks in a row, or at least down weeks by his standards, I should say. But I think he's a guy who, if he can get back, in the mix, I think he's a guy up, bring his game back to where it was the first month and a half of the season or so. He'll be in the conversation, but I think, at this point, I think it's Baptiste's award to lose. Like he's definitely the lead horse for it.
Yeah, and that's why at plus 150, I mean, if you want to maybe sprinkle a little, I think kind of the value has dried up a little bit at, if you place a $10 bet, you're getting $15 back on your payback. I'm not going to talk anybody out of it because I'm with all these other, analysts who are definitely a little bit more savvy than I am. This dude's in the driver's seat. I just don't know if there's value from a betting perspective. Right. Dan, I'll tell you what, man, I could keep picking your brain for another half an hour, another 2 hours on this. But we already gave the people a nice meaty edition of Over and Back. So if there's anything else you want to touch on, if not, just let people know where they can find you, where they can read you, and of course, where they can follow you. The dude a must follow. Dan, floor's yours, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man. Again, it's just super fun. I love talking about this stuff. Love doing these games with you guys. I hope we get to do it again sometime. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. Dan Arestia is my name. It's my name on Twitter too. DANARESTIA. You can find my weekly stuff at Lacrosse Flash. I do a weekly storylines. I call it takeaways, sort of a blog column there for Lacrosse Flash, where I just touch on whatever popped out storyline for me from the weekend. That's usually a pretty fun one. And then, like you said, I do gambling content for Pickswise. I pick at least one game there every week. And then I do 3 player props every week. I do that with a few other guys who are on absolute heaters right now. Charlie White and Nick Zeroya are doing content for Pickswise as well. And you should check them out too, because they are killing it. They came into last weekend like 8-1 on their last best bets. They're absolutely on fire. So, you can find my stuff there along with Charlie and Nick over at Pickswise. All our PLL content there, tons of stuff. So, it's been great. Thanks for having me, man. This has been super fun.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have to have you back, especially if the stars truly align. The DA special. He's Dan Arestia. I'm Dan Alexander. Make sure you bet responsibly, and we'll talk to you next week here on Over and Back.